And that goes for each circle, right? Each circle has smaller moons around it. For example, social democracy has third way. Third way, to answer your question, third way is a very, very watered down version of socialism. It's, let's say, the most you could stretch socialism while still, it's like the most right wing a socialist party could go. Third way refers to the word third way comes from Tony Blair, who was a prime minister of United Kingdom for Labour, but he went very far to the right, and that's so it's a right wing, it's a centrist variant of socialism, just like social liberalism is a center variant of liberalism, and Christian democracy is a center variant of conservatism. So that's, you know, what we're going to look at. So this is roughly ordered from left to right, as you can see, right? Some things are loose, like anarchism. I could have put it with communism, but I think it's too different. Feminism, could have put it with socialism, but out of respect, I won't. So that's the spectrum that we're going to work with. And each of these clusters, as I said, is its own little solar system, right? Each cluster has a left and a right. There's a left conservatism and there's a right conservatism, right? These ideas are way too big to simply categorize. They have too much internal diversity, too much inconsistency, really, within it, to be simple concepts. But that's what we are trying to do in this course. That's our challenge, to deal with this complexity, this ambiguity in ideology. Because ideology, I mean, a specific ideology is consistent. Marxism is consistent, but socialism as a whole is not, right? Same with nationalism. Nazism is consistent, but social nationalism as a whole has too many variants. You have Arab nationalism, for example, which is quite the opposite of Nazism. So there's a lot of variety there, and we're going to try to explore that as much as we can, as much as we have time in this course. So let us look at what we're actually going to discuss, right? So take a last good look at this picture, and you can print it afterwards to help understand where I'm going with this. Again, this is not like the way. There's many other ways you could order this. I could have ordered this, for example, from unambitious to utopic, right? The two utopic ideologies would be neoliberalism and communism. The two that actually think they can create some kind of heaven situation. Then you would have, I don't know, socialism and liberalism, and nationalism in the second tier, and then conservatism at the bottom. There's many ways I could have ordered this. But this is what we're actually going to do. This is my plan that will change. This plan will not survive contact with the enemy. I'm quite certain of that, because again, these are things I want to do. Every night I'll have to see what I can actually do. But this is the plan as it stands. So the course is divided in 6 parts. You have 5 parts that represent one ideology each, and then you have a 6th part, which is anything that doesn't fit in there, right? And each part has the same rhythm. I'm trying to give a certain rhythm to this course, which is we start with the core ideas of an ideology. This is maybe a bit repetitive, because this is going to go onto the same things that I talked about in history of political thought, just deeper, with more authors, with more literature, but essentially talking about the same topic. But then we're going to go into some things that are specific for that ideology. That could be specific policies, that could be specific problems. For example, with communism, you have revolution, right? That's a topic that you don't really get with other ideologies. So let's chew a bit on what it means to have a revolution. What are the problems with that? And we talk about the variants inside of it, etc. And once that's done at the end, I always want to end by going towards the center and to talk about what can we, or how does this ideology look like if you add a lot of water to it, right? How can you take the principles of this ideology and use them outside of their context? Or if you mix them with something else, what happens there? Or does it die? Does it work? right? What are the challenges involved in diluting this ideology? That's how I want to end each, because that makes a bridge to the next one, and that's hopefully the rhythm that we're in. So day one is today, the day of the introduction. There, we did that. Thursday, I'm going to have a follow-up lecture on my lecture on ideology. I hope you remember I opened my last year's class talking about ideology. I'm going to do that again, but more of that, deeper. I want to talk to you about a mature understanding of ideology and how we maybe have different ideologies, although nobody picked Ricardo Anaya. How we can talk about this, right? Then we're going to start with communism. I thought it was original to start with communism. Normally you start with other things. But that plunges us right into the deep, right? We're going to talk about something that's weird to us. So I'm going to start with revisiting the history of communism, not just Marx, but other people. Then we're going to talk about revolutions. This is going to be quite a critical lecture. I've been thinking a lot lately about how revolutions are really not that simple as they look. And there's a lot of problems that come with doing a revolution. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the variants inside communism. You have Leninism, you have Maoism, you have Trotskyism, you have all these isms named after various leaders. And we're going to talk about what are the differences between them, as good as we can understand them without being from those countries. And then I'm going to talk about commons beyond communism. I'm going to take the heart of communism, which is the word common, and rip it out and see what can we do with this, right? Forget about the state, forget about all of this communist things that actually happened. Let's just talk about the core and if we can use that outside of it. Can we take a piece of communism and use it here in our society today without the revolution? That's the question. Then we move on to conservatism, which is a very difficult ideology to talk about, and I'm going to explain that in my first lecture, because it's not always what it seems to be. So we're going to talk about what is conservatism. This is very much my own opinion on it, but we'll see. Then we'll talk about neoconservatism and religion. Neoconservatism is a very specific concept. And we'll talk about religious conservatism a little bit and how that politically takes form. Then we talk about some conservative policies. Conservatism is very broad, and there's a lot of ways in which you could be conservative that that they're not necessarily related to religion, and we're going to talk about some of them. And then we go to the center at the end. We talk about Christian democracy, which is a kind of European variant of conservatism. This is basically a mix between conservatism and socialism. Then we have a break. Well, I have a break, you don't, where you do presentations. Haha, and I don't have to prepare a class. Then we start with liberalism, the third cluster. Talk about the core of liberalism, bit repetition of what we did, but deeper before. Then we talk about neoliberalism, not the concept of it, because I've explained that quite good, but kind of how it happened in real world history, like how it spread. Because there's a paradox there. It's supposed to be the theory of liberty and the natural thing people do, but it did not come into the world naturally. It was a top-down, forced by governments thing. So we're going to talk a bit about that contrast between something that's natural and forced at the same time. Then we're going to talk about policies. Neoliberal policies will be a case study. And then we turn towards the center and we talk about social liberalism. By the way, I hope I'm not boring you to death by reading this table. Are you still awake?
It's okay.
Yes, Percy, we are.
Okay. So we talk about social liberalism, which is a very nice topic to talk about. Very, very smart people in social liberalism. Then we turn back to the left. We turn towards socialism again. Talk about the core and how is social democracy different from communism, and why? Because they were the same thing at some point, and then they split in a very dramatic divorce. And we're going to talk about that divorce. Then we talk about the welfare state. Now we kind of forget about politics and we go all policy. This is something I know a little bit more about because I'm a sociologist of poverty, and I studied this a lot. So we're going to talk in detail about the welfare state, which will overlap a bit with some of the other classes, but whatever. They were not taught by a European that actually lived in the welfare state. So then we talk about socialist policies in Latin America to make it more homey. And at the end, we talk about challenges to social democracy and what happens when you dilute it or you mix it with other things and how it doesn't turn out well usually. And then lastly, we switch to nationalism. This is going to be a bit shorter because nationalism, it's less. The problem with nationalism is that it's national, so it's different in each country, right? There's less to talk about nationalism as a whole. It's much more context specific than the other. So we have 3 classes on that. We're going to talk about what is nationalism. Then we're going to talk about the more extreme variant of fascism, but not historically. I've already talked about that. So we're going to talk about the alt-right. We're going to talk about neo-fascism, fascism today, not fascism in the 1930s. And then we talk about nationalist policies and issues, what's specific to nationalism, and a lot of it, how does it make sense, when does it make sense, etc. So then we're done with the 5 big clusters, and we talk about, well, whatever there's left in my spectrum. Going to talk about anarchism. A lot of anarchists think they're communists, but there's too much variety within anarchism to see it as a variant of communism, in my opinion. If you're very right-wing anarchists too. So we're going to talk about anarchism a little bit. Only one, because I don't really like anarchism, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. We're going to talk about environmentalism. I don't really know what I'm going to do there, but we're going to talk about it as a political theory, right? Still need to read on that. Then there's room for another class, which, with Allah's blessing, I will think of. Probably we'll talk about identity politics in that class. Then there's a week of buffer, and then there's my final lectures that I wanted to give you last semester but didn't, which are called Playing with Politics. This is where I elaborate my own views on political theory. 10 of them, 10 theses. It's like 10 of my essays, but in one class. So that's how we end the semester. And then we have another week to grade. So, well, do you have any questions about this roster? How does it look? Terrible?
It looks good.
Looks really interesting.
Okay.
I like the part of looking beneath all of the theories, looking at the policies.
Yeah, I want to pick some policies that I want to make a variety of things that like could appeal to people who are not from that ideology and things that are really central to it. So yeah, we hopefully gonna do that. So how am I gonna teach this course? There will be lectures, of course. I still prefer to teach myself over having students teach, and I think you deep down prefer that too. So I'm going to be talking a lot, but less than last semester. This is not just me talking all the time. There's going to be more room for debate and discussion because we can actually do that because there's not 75 of us. And yeah, because I think this course also is about discussing and chewing and exchanging views and asking questions about things and learning together. I want this to also be a space to talk about politics in a mature sense, right? I talk about politics with everyone, usually to my own demise, but I know for many people it's hard to talk about politics with their family or friends. So, this is a good space for that. So I want to leave a bit more room for discussion. And there are also some things that you're going to do, a bit more than last semester. So let's look at that, right? What are the homeworks and how do they work? Well, the first one of them has to do with reading. Last semester, I asked you to read 2 texts, well, 3, including the Bible. And I don't know if you suffered that or you like that, but we're going to do a lot more of that. Because it's fourth semester, you know, we need to get serious with things. So I'm going to give you 6 texts to read. And it's the same as last semester. You have to write 2 reflections on them, or 3, depending on how long the text is. And then just show me that you read the text. We're going to start easy. The first 3 texts are short, like 6 pages or less, sometimes even 4 pages. They're short texts. You can read them in an hour. The last 3 texts are more difficult, especially 4 and 6, and especially the 4th text is going to hit you in the face. It's very difficult, but very good classical text. The first one that you're going to read for Thursday is called Time for Outrage. It's an angry rant about why you should be angry too. 6 pages. It's a very easy text. Then we're going to read a text by Albert Einstein, the Albert Einstein, about politics. Then the 3rd text is going to be... What's the 3rd text going to be? About conservatism. Very short text, 3 pages, with a slightly different thing you need to do for it. Then it's going to be a text, this is the hard one, about liberalism. It's really hard, but it's really good. It's called 2 Concepts of Liberty. It's one top 3 political text ever written, in my opinion. Then you have one that's about welfare state, and then we're going to read the last one I still have to see, I think, about identity politics. So we're going to read that, you're going to do the report. You've already done this, it's the same, but a bit easier because they're shorter text. 6 times, 5 points each. Then there are presentations. We have them because we need to do them, because that's our faculty. But normally you have to do them every class, and I reduced it to once. So you're going to present on political figures. I'm going to explain that more very soon, but that's going to keep things a bit fresh. It's going to be interesting because I'm talking about theory all the time. You're going to talk a bit about people, which makes it more nicer. Then we have 2 case studies. I chose liberalism and socialism for this, or neoliberalism and socialism, because that's what the game really is in practice, right? You have all these ideologies, but in our reality in Mexico, you have 2 choices next elections, right? Literally. Well, you could vote Movimiento, you could vote for Senator, but besides that, you either have the kind of weak socialism of Morena, or you have the neoliberalism of the Mafia de Poder, and these are 2 options, right? So I'm going to take those 2. You could vote Communist Party. You could do different things. Mexico, no, they don't exist anymore. Well, Movimiento if you want something else on the right.
Or Sí por México.
But that's the one, right? Sí por Mexico is the other one, is a neoliberal camp. So those are your two good options. And I want to do some case studies on these ideologies. So first, neoliberal ideologies. We're going to compare countries and how neoliberalism got implemented there within Latin America. And the second case study is about some that involves a little bit more reading. It's about certain social policies. It's a bit more zoomed in than the other one, comparing social policy mostly between Mexico and Brazil, but between some other countries too. Some of the 40 programs, comparing them, because AMLO didn't invent any of this. It looks like he did, but he didn't. They're from other countries, they're copies. We're going to look at the original and what we're doing, comparing them. That's the second case study. Then you have a thing you can ignore, class activities and reading controls. This is the standard thing that's really about attendance. It's not attendance, it's like, if I ask you something and you don't reply, okay, that's okay. Maybe you're at the toilet. If I ask you something like over the span of an hour and you don't reply once in that hour, you're just not there, right? You'll start losing points for pretending to be in class. And then we have the mysterious book essay. That should make you nervous already, right? Those words. So let's talk about the presentations first, dear students. there's 5 of you. That means we got time, right, for this presentation. I took 2 days for them, which means you have max 40 minutes to talk about your topic. What it will be is you'll be assigned, no, you're not assigned, you're going to choose a political leader that you have to present about, right, about their political ideas. The focus has to be their ideas and their policies. You can talk about their life, but that should be maximum 10 minutes, right? Sometimes students talk a whole hour about, you know, their divorce and who they got remarried with and why, and their relationship with their parents and all of this. This is not interesting to me. It's interesting for like a Netflix movie, but that's not what this course is about, right? So I want you to delve into, you know, reflecting on their political ideas, right? Talk about biography if it gives context, but that's not the point of the lecture. Also, I want you to be prepared about what you're going to speak about. My instructions are very vague, right? Talk about a person. So you can talk about whatever you want. And because you can talk about whatever you want, I expect you to know the words that come out of your mouth, right? Because you don't have to say it. If you don't know something, just don't mention it, right? But if you mention it, you know, if you say that Atatürk is from Turkey, and somebody asks, where is Turkey? And you don't know where Turkey is, that's a bit weird, right? So prepare well for this. I'm not gonna quiz you on them, but you know, I once had, was this? I think this was in UDEM. No, this was here. A student who didn't know where Spain was. That should not happen to you, right? So the leaders that you will right now choose from are the following. We have Martin Luther King Jr., the man himself, always very interesting, Martin Luther King. Socialist, nobody knows that. I think he's just about race, but he's a bit more than that. Then we have Mahatma Gandhi from India. Very different. He's different than anything that we're talking about in this course. He stands outside of these, if anything, I call him a conservative, but he's very different. He's very unique thinker. Then we have Lord Margaret Thatcher from the UK, the beacon of neoliberalism. We have Mr. Nelson Mandela, who everybody likes, but nobody knows what he actually, like what his politics are, besides equality. He's a socialist. Then we have Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Kemal Atatürk, you probably never heard of, but he's very important. He's the founder of modern Turkey. And this is actually quite an easy one to pick because he's very well documented. There's a lot of information on Atatürk and he did a lot. So it's kind of a, I would put him under nationalism, but he's really interesting. Then we have Fidel Castro, my personal favorite. Fidel lived a long time and did a lot of things and wrote a lot of things. He was a very active writer, so there's a lot to delve in there. Then you have the guy you also probably never heard of, Thomas Sankara, from I think Burkina Faso, but I'm not certain. He was a sort of Marxist African leader. He's a bit more difficult because he didn't live that long because they killed him, like all African Marxist leaders. So he's a bit difficult because you have to really look deep into it because there's a limited amount of time to talk about with him. And then we have nobody's favorite politician, Francisco Franco, the former dictator of Spain, who represents the more nationalist, conservative type of leader. So, is any of you subscribed to El Extranjero Político?
I am.
Okay, Diego, then you get to pick first. Corruption. Who do you want?
I think I'm gonna go with Gandhi.
Gandhi. Okay. So Diego picks Gandhi. Who's next? Miss Mariana, let's start with you next. Who do you want?
Okay, I want Mustafa.
Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Okay, good choice. Miss Sophia, ladies first.
I will go with Thomas Sankara.
Okay. So then we have Mr. Hugo.
Let's see. I think that I'll go for Martin Luther King.
Okay. Then Diego, you have the choice between Thatcher, Castro, Mandela, or Franco.
It's hard.
I think that I'll go for
Pick something
Franco.
right wing would be my advice.
Yeah, I think I will choose Thatcher.
Okay. Good. So we have King, Thatcher, Atatürk, Sankara, and Mr. Gandhi. Franco, still not popular. So, okay. So now you know, write that down. That's going to be in like 2 months? No, a month and a half. We'll have these presentations. All right. Now that's the presentation. Now let's talk about the PIA. The PIA involves you reading a book. Why? Because I'm of the opinion, because I'm tired, better said, of students graduating from university without ever having read a book. Without ever having read a book. And this happens way too often, right? So you are going to read a book this semester about politics, a classic book on politics. I think you can do that. If I can write a book, you can read a book. So you're gonna read one classic work here and write your essay about that. This is a test. It's a test of intelligence in the sense that you have to understand the book, but it's also a test in intelligence in the sense that you have to be intelligent enough to start reading this book, right? If you leave this for the last minute, it's not gonna work. You're gonna take the summary from Amazon, paste that into a page, send it to me. I will smell it immediately. You will fail. Don't do this, right? This only works. This is not that hard to do if you start in time, right? You read a few pages each week. That's how we do this. So what I want you to do, and I'm going to give you much more detailed instructions, right? I'll upload a file one day. But that's not your worry right now. Your worry right now is to start reading the book. But what I want you to do is to summarize the argument of the book, right? And reflect on it, right? What do I think about what the author is saying? Does he or she make sense to me? And also reflect a bit about what the book is about, right? And then if you can use any of these ideas that inspire you in any way to look at today's society. So there's 6 books here that I selected. They're all classics. Let me go over them. They're different books, like they're very different. They're different in size, they're different in difficulty, they're different in availability, different in ideology they represent. The first one of my favorites, is The Rhetoric of Reaction. This is a masterpiece. Rhetoric of Reaction by Albert Hirschman is it's a book about conservatism. It's a book about how conservatives talk about things. It's quite long, but it's not that hard to read. I'm going to read this book this semester. I've already read it, but I have a reading circle. I don't think I've ever mentioned that. I run a reading circle, which, transparency alert, is linked to Morena. It's not Morena, but it's in the web of Morena somewhere, at the university, kind of for left-wing students. And this semester, I think we're going to read that book. We're going to read it, I think, slower than you need to read it for this. You can join that anyway if you choose this book. I have this also as a PDF. So that's easy to access. That's a Rhetoric of Reaction, long book about conservatism. It's a good one. Then we have The Prison Notebooks by Antonio Gramsci. This is a Marxist classic. Prison Notebooks are literally what it sounds like. They're books that Gramsci wrote in prison. Gramsci was a communist that went to prison because the fascists threw him there. And he wrote a book about kind of why this happened, right? Why did the fascists take power? How did they do it? And why did we, the communists, lose? So it's a very important text in Marxism. It's long though. It's Prison Notebooks. It's not one book. It's like 30 books. So this is like 800 pages. I don't expect you to read all of this. You probably can't, right? I expect you to read 3 chapters. Most chapters like 100 pages each. So it's still a lot, but you don't need to read the whole Prison Notebooks. That's insane. It's like a whole shelf. I have this as a PDF, so you just pick 3 chapters. I suggest the first 2 and the introduction, and then some third thing of your choice, whatever you like. But that's what you could do. Then you have a very weird text, quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong. I don't have it here with me. I don't know if you've ever seen this. The red book. It's like this size. It's not a very big book. It's like a pocket. These are literally quotations from Mao Zedong. So this is a book of quotes from Mao, the communist leader of China. This is a classic because millions of people have read this. Like he printed like 100 million of them and kind of spread them across the world. I have one. And this is very unique because they're just quotes from him. It's like hundreds of pages of quotes from him about him reflecting about the world. It's very philosophical, kind of almost religious sounding. And it's a book about communism, right? But written by a communist dictator. So it's a bit weird. It's easy to read if you have any knowledge about China. If you're going to read this, just read the Wikipedia page about the Chinese Revolution. And then you'll understand things. It's not that much text. It's a very long book, but it's printed on like 1/6 of a page. So it's not that much text, really. This is very easy to find. It's free. It's they're communists. It's for free. You find it if you Google it immediately. Then we have A Theory of Justice by John Rawls. This is really a classic book. This is social liberalism. This is very interesting. If you're more a conservative person, but you're interested in maybe coming to the center, this is a good book for that. It's basically talking about how the right, talking about coming to the center. That's what he's trying to do. Right? He's trying to make a theory of justice, which is liberal, but more just than normal liberalism. This is a long book. I don't have it. It's probably very cheap because it's, 50 years old. It's probably, you could pick it up, I guess, for $5 on Amazon. I don't know. But it's a long book. It's probably not that hard to read, but it's over 400 pages, I think. But it's a true classic. Then you have Imagined Communities by Benedict Anderson. This is different because this is not politics. This is sociology, really. It's a history of nationalism. It's about what nationalism is. By the way, all of these books, we're going to talk about them in class. They're going to come up at some point. So you're like, oh, that's my book when we talk about that. This is a book about what nationalism is and where it comes from. Very influential book. I don't have it. I've read parts of it, but I don't have it. Again, it's 40 years old. It's not going to be that hard to find. And then you have probably the hardest book on this list, which is The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. Very influential book. This is her ranting against the fascists and the communists, basically. It's a long complaining about authoritarianism. This is hard to read. I've read parts of it. It's very good. It's probably the most influential of these books here, but it's thick to read. It's going to be very cheap if you find it somewhere. 70 years old. But yeah. So you can both take the same book here. I'm not gonna do this lottery thing. So what do you want? So the first three I can give, like I can get them to you. The other three you have to find a way of getting on your own. Maybe the library has them. I think the library should have a theory of justice at least. It's too much of a classic. Anybody wants to choose already, or you want to sit on this for next time?
Doctor, I would like to, maybe if we can tell you in the next class, like to see more about like all of the books and choose like the really one that we are interested on. Well, it's a suggestion. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine for me. So yeah, you have to see for yourself, right, what you're interested in and also how much you could take. Because the Arendt and Rawls are a bit bigger texts than the other are. Probably the shortest of these is the one of Mao, but it doesn't read that fluent. Okay. Yeah, you have it at your grandparents' house. Okay. Good. Well, that are the essays. What do I still have to tell you? For next time, I want you to read this text that I uploaded, Time for Outrage. You will like it. It's a very easy reading text. It's very simple. And to write me down 2 things. It doesn't have to be by Thursday. You can send it on Friday if you don't have time. To write me 2 reflections on the text. 2 ideas you had while reading it, which shouldn't be that hard because it's written to inspire. By a guy that fought in the war. So that's it for me. Oh, last thing about kind of the conduct of things. You already know me, right? I speak English. You should speak English with me too. We understand that. I understand Spanish, but let's keep it English. About cheating, don't try it. Out of your last class, I failed 6 people for cheating. I will figure it out eventually if you try it. And since I've had you before, there's no more excuses now. People do it. They always do it. I usually catch them. They cry. It's dramatic. Don't do it. I think that's it that I wanted to explain to you. Is there anything else? No. So yeah, we'll have classes 2 times a week, the full hours. And that's it for me. Do you have any questions about this course, about life, about anything?
Doctor, we wanted to ask if you wanted us to turn on our cameras the following classes, in case if you wanted some company.
I would love that. I cannot demand it of you. I think I technically can, but I morally cannot do that. But yes, I would love it if you would turn on your cameras. There's 5 of us. If you're shy of each other, it's going to be a hard career. So yes, I would definitely like that.
Oh, okay. Then you will see our faces next class.
Yes, that would be cool. Any other questions or things you want to say? Comments about politics?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm pretty excited to see more cases because last semester we didn't analyze a lot of cases, so I think it's gonna be great for this.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, a couple of them in this semester. Last semester I had so much to tell and so little time. Now we have a bit more time. Okay. If nothing else, dear students, I'm gonna let you go. So you have a bit of time before your next class, and I'll see you Thursday. All right?
All right.
Right.
Yes,
Thanks,
teacher. See you.
doctor. Have
Good.
a nice day.
Thanks.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.